Hello, welcome to my channel. All right, today's topic. That's too funny. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. welcome to today's tip for beginner wedding photographer. My name is Sam. I'm a wedding photographer out of Ottawa, Ontario, and essentially I created this live stream to help those who are interested in doing wedding photography. And my goal in today's hour and a half show essentially is to teach you how to start a successful and profitable business. In the main topics, essentially, will be gear, business tools, CRMs, web pages, building your portfolio and brand. If that interests you, love for you to stay. And so, the main reason why I personally started my business was for one, I was looking for a way to optimize my income stream. And so, I was working full time at the time that I started this business, and as anybody who lives in North America will tell you, life is expensive. And so I found myself working a full time job with a mortgage, family, wife, kids, car payments, and I felt overwhelmed. And I just couldn't figure out, how to get out of that, quicksand essentially. And so I started listening to podcasts, reading books on how to, um, make more money. And I've always been a fan of cameras since I was a young person. My mother giving me one camera, starting that, I, camera love, photography love, and the podcast suggested that wedding photography was a great way to. Hey, hello, welcome back. How you doing? I'm glad to see you here. I am doing similar live stream that from a few days ago. I'm happy to hear. Thanks for that. So as I was saying, I was giving a little bit of background information about why I started wedding photography. I do love doing. Oh, it's all good. I appreciate anyone who's here. So stick around. I'll be covering some of the some of the same topics that I did last time, but with a different angle. And I might add a thing or two since just you and I here again. But while you're here, friend, can you tell me, is the audio good at the moment? I'm using a microphone this time around. Give me a thumbs up. I'll assume that the audio is still good. So all good there. So as I was saying, I was giving a little bit of a background information as to why I started this business a few years back. At the core of the issue is trying to find a way to get out of, the very expensive lifestyle, uh, you know, cost of living of North America, living in Canada. Hey, thank you for confirming. Um, so yeah, podcast is what started it all, and it worked out perfectly at the time doing wedding photography. That meant that I didn't have to drop and go in a completely different direction. I was in the corporate world for a number of years, so I wasn't gonna just quit my job, the security of it. So doing wedding photography was perfect. I could work all week in my job and then on weekend work on weddings and be away one day out of the week. And then I just essentially worked from home on my business. So all the editing, I can do it late at night when I'm taking care of my family responsibilities, and it worked out perfectly. Actually, the income that it generated first year was surprisingly a lot more than I anticipated. Mind you, I also underestimated the amount of work that came with it. But things are getting better as I'm building that experience there. I found ways to be more efficient, um, and recoup a lot of my time. I'm lucky that um, we're in the artificial intelligence era where a lot of the work that you know we used to do manually can be delegated to software now, and we can really save hundreds of hours a month just allowing software to do it. So that's why, like I said, wedding photography was the best way to supplement the income. It was definitely a journey from having zero portfolio to like booking 25, 30 weddings in 1 year. But I've always been into the art, so photography was kind of like a creative outlet for me. I used to love drawing and painting and all that stuff growing up. So photography was just a natural step. and so I enjoy it. It brings me joy, and the work that I do is enjoyed by my clients, and I could use the skills that I learned in photography and videography to build a YouTube channel that also brings me joy, knowing that with a little bit of effort and skill, you can create some really interesting videos. So that's why I do what I do now. The skills that I learned, entrepreneurship was one of the other skills, along with learning how to handle a camera and editing. But really, photography is mostly done in front of a computer more than anything else in business, and especially how to deal with clients, client service, how to create web pages, how to pay your taxes, do all the stuff. So those new skills are really, really um, transferred into my regular life, and I feel like for the longest time working for an employer, I never felt at ease, to be truthful. I've always felt like vulnerable, and anytime they could just like walk you out the door and just tell you you're fired, which happened to me, believe it or not, long time ago. I probably deserved it though. I was very young in my early 20s, and I missed a few shifts. I used to work for a retail store. I used to sell like home hardware, so I think it used to be called Rona. It's like a Home Depot, and I missed a few shifts, and I got canned within 6 months, I think, and I deserved it. Luckily, unemployment in Canada is pretty good. Has always been good, so I was able to find a job relatively quickly. But it humbled me knowing that you can lose your job overnight, and so knowing that working for the first 10, 15 years of my life, I always felt like I was at the whim of my employer, and it's not a good feeling. Now that I own a business that could sustain myself and my family if need be, um, is really awesome. And the high of bringing in money and taking all the credit, getting all the accolade is great. When you work for an employer, all your wins go to someone else. When you work extra hard, your employer wins extra well. So that sucks. So it's not really an incentive to try really hard. So there's nothing more demoralizing than sitting in an office all day long, wasting your potential. I mean, I don't want to talk down on employment, but I feel like when you're in a job, it's just always even kill. So you do is enough not to get fired, but not too much that you take on additional responsibility for no really increase in pay. So that's why I think entrepreneurship is the way to go. Only yourself, your efforts, your how clever you are can really limit you in terms of earning potential. So that's why um, having your own business is really really the best way to live a happy and fulfilling life, in my opinion. So welcome to our live stream. Thank you for attending. So today's topic is tips for beginning wedding photographers. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about what you need as a new photographer who's interested in going into this venture. Definitely a camera at the very minimum is a required gear. Mind you, a camera is just one piece of the puzzle, but that's where you got to start. It's the first piece of the puzzle. So my suggestion for anybody who wants to learn photography, who wants to make some money out of it, is learning the fundamentals of photography, which is first of all buying a camera. Buying the right camera is important. Now, a lot of people will say, well, in order to do this for a living, you have to, spend thousands of dollars. I'd argue that's not really the case. Buying used gear is how I started my business, and I suggest you do too, especially at the very beginning when money is limited but time is plenty. Buying used gear is definitely the way to go, especially when you're trying to make a business out of it. A camera is one item you need. You also need a computer. Those are not cheap. I would argue you probably should spend more on your computer than you should on your camera. And then everything, all the accessories, the monopod, tripod, batteries, all that stuff you'll need. And on top of that, add that you need a website. Those are not cheap as well. Um, so at the core, buying a camera, buy used. Now there is a big argument when it comes to cameras. Should you use full frame? Should you use an APS-C? Um, I years later, I'm still shooting on APS-C cameras. I use the Fujifilm X-T4 and a combination of the X-T4 and two X-T2s, X-T3, excuse me, and their crop sensors. My clients have never um, ever questioned what year my cameras are, whether they're full frame or APS. They have no clue. Only other photographers might judge you. And the reason why I went with the Fujifilm, besides being very pretty cameras, I think they are relatively inexpensive to get some quality professional grade cameras at a reasonable price. And also, their lenses are significantly cheaper than a full frame lens. So that's why that was my go-to. Now that I'm used to the Fujifilm platform, I don't think I'll go away from it, at least not for a long time. But if I was starting over, I definitely buy a Fujifilm, probably an X-T3, which I still use to this day, is perfect for that. You can get a brand new one for under probably $1,500 Canadian. That'll be $1,000 American. For those of you Americans in the room, and then lenses. The photographers will suggest, experienced one will say, go get a prime lens. Do not do that, especially at the very beginning while you're still learning photography. There's nothing worse than being stressed at a wedding and then also trying to manage two cameras at the same time. Usually, most professional photographers, wedding photographers, would use a combination of a 35 millimeter lens and an 85. Uh, that's for advanced photography. Stick to a 24-70. They're much more convenient to use. They're easier to frame, and so that's why I always suggest just deal with one camera at a time, one lens that you can get a wide shot and a tight shot, um, and go from there. An X-T3 is perfect because it's in the range of 20 to 25 megapixels, which is perfect for today's sharpness, if you will. So, like I said, a Fujifilm with a 24-70. So the one that that I prefer is the Tamron 17 to 70. It's almost half the price of the native lens, and it has vibration control. So you'll learn as you listen in on this podcast, on this live, that not only I do photography, but I do hybrid coverage, which means a combination of photo and video. And so the Tamron is the ideal lens because it has stabilization built in, and it's a lot less stressful on the back end when majority of your footage is pretty stable and usable. So that's why I recommend that lens. How many lenses should you buy? Well, it depends by your budget. Um, I use five lenses, but at this point in my career, I've made enough money to buy all the lenses that I need. But if I could just do with two, I could do almost as good as a job. But I prefer to use five because during the day I will use typically a 24-70 with an 85, and then in the ceremony I'll use a 70 to 200, and then I only use that for that part of the day. And then in the evening, I will switch to a 35 millimeter and 85. And so that's why I use five different lenses um, on any given day. And I find that prime lenses really shine in the evening. The rest of the day, they're awesome lenses, but they I find that the images can get too soft. So a 24-70 is really, especially at the f2.8 aperture, is ideal. It gives you that nice bokeh while your images are still sharp. And when you're doing event photography, people will jump in and out of the frame, and it's hard to photograph and keep everybody in sharp focus when you're shooting at f1.2 or f1.4. There's always going to be someone out of focus. So f2.8, I think, is the perfect event lens. So yeah, so buy used cameras. Don't buy anything new. Avoid these websites that resell camera gear, because the amount they sell them for, you can almost get a brand new lens, a brand new camera. I found that Facebook Marketplace, people who do photography as a hobby are the perfect people to buy used gear off of them, because they're often not going to be um, used very much. So that the camera will have a lot more life than if you go to B&H, who bought cameras from another professional photographer who put 200, shutter count on it, 200,000, and then that camera will probably die within a year if you're lucky. So, buy from someone who loves photography but doesn't use it for a profession. That's how you're gonna get stretch your dollar, my friend. All right. Um, Now, cameras. You should always have two. You probably should have three if you can afford it. At least if one of your camera dies, you're not gonna be just down to one, and then what happens? Then you're gonna be stressed for the rest of the day. So always have two at all times on yourself. Then maybe a third one in your car that you can go back to if you need it. Um, and batteries and memory cards, you should collect those like Pokemons, because if you own a mirrorless camera, you'll quickly realize that those things like eat battery like I've never seen. So um, my XT4 is pretty good. They've increased the size of the battery, but the XT3s, I might go through like 5 or 6 different um, batteries on any given day. Memory cards have more than you need, at least half a dozen, if not more, um, because I overshoot myself. So like I go through memory pretty quickly, and when you start doing video, that eats up also the memory space. So I use the SanDisk 128 gigs memory cards. Um, they're like $35 on Amazon. I have like 20, 30 of these. And I suggest, if you decide to buy a camera, make sure that it's a dual slot camera, because in the event that one of your memory cards suffer from a an error and it crashes, you still have the wedding saved in the backup slot. Yeah. And then monopod and a tripod is definitely something that you should invest, but you can cheap out there. I don't recommend you go spend hundreds of dollars, especially at the beginning of your photography career, because you can go as far as spending. People are insane and will spend $700-800 on a silly tripod. All it does is just hold your camera steady. That's all you need. You don't need a carbon fiber that transform into like a chapstick this size. You know, get a decent tripod that does the job, and something along the $100 price range I think is a good spot. It may be a little heavy, but it's just a tripod. You're gonna lose it anyway within a season, so don't go spend too much money. People move stuff, people steal stuff. I leave my tripods all over the place, so I'd rather lose $100 than $500. So don't go spend too much money on that. Those things are not that technology in them are not that incredible that it warrants spending 5 times what an average tripod can do for you. So that's my suggestion there for you. All right. Any questions so far? Well, I appreciate you guys hanging around on my second episode on uh, on my channel. So item number two, essential business tools. So like I said, once you got your camera, spend a good couple months practicing the exposure triangle, learning what aperture does and what the shutter speed does. And then while you're learning photography, this is something you could work on at the same time to fast track your how quickly you can book clients and make some money at the end of the day. And the first thing is, think about your clients when you're starting this photography. Um, the majority of the work we do is client service, very little photography, you know. And a CRM is super important because it'll keep you organized. A client relation management system, that's what a CRM stands for. It basically allows you to, um, you know, schedule bookings, send out contracts, send take payments, your calendar. Once you start booking more than one wedding at a time, you want to have a calendar that will keep you organized. And so that's why I suggest you get a CRM. They're not very expensive. Honeybook is my go-to CRM. Um, it's $60 Canadian, so do the currency exchange wherever you are. It's very cheap, and they also take about 2% of any payment that comes through their portal, which I think is fair for the amount of value they give you. You can have one all your calendar, all your bookings in one calendar, so you know not to double book. Your contracts, that's going to save your butt the day that a client gets angry at you for no reason and they decided to sue you into oblivion. A contract may not prevent you from getting sued, but it may save you from going bankrupt. So having a CRM allows you to send out contracts, and once they digitally sign it, they're legally digital signatures are legally recognized around many countries in the world, and so that kind of deters them. When you do photography, wedding photography specifically, you're going to deal with a lot of unreasonable people, and so the contract and an invoice that outlines exactly what you're delivering will prevent them from coming back and pretending that you had agreed to something else, and they might try to get you to do more work for them for free, which will build your frustration and eventually burn you out and eventually take you out of business. And so this is kind of a marathon, right? You want to stay in this for the long game, trying to make as much money as you can. Not all about the money, but the enjoyable part. Being an entrepreneur is enjoyable because you control your life. You don't have people dictating stuff to you. That's kind of like the attraction of being an entrepreneur. So a contract is very, very important. Make sure you outline that you're not responsible for things you can't control. Some venues sometimes act irrational and may not let you on site. So contract is one of the main reasons why you need a CRM. Honeybook is one of the favorites among photographer, but there is a whole bunch as well. Website is definitely a second thing you should work on. A lot of you know amateur photographers only run a social media account and never a website. That's silly for many reasons, which I will explain. Um, but a website is kind of like a storefront. And so, would you buy from Amazon if only they had a Instagram account? Probably not. So that's why a website is super, super important, especially because through a website you can build SEO, which is search engine optimization. That's how you can be found online, and you own it. So if you ever use these fickle social media platforms like Instagram and YouTube, I take that back YouTube since I'm using your platform. YouTube is awesome. I'm gonna leave it alone. But if you use Facebook and any of the other platforms, they could choose to throw your ass, you know, out the door for whatever reason. Uh, and so when you have your own website, you own the domain name, so you own your business. So no one can take it from you because you own it. That's why it's important to have a website because um, that's how, like I said, you can direct your clients to. That's where you can have your portfolio, a complete portfolio. You're not limited to whatever platform is gonna say you are entitled to, and that's where you can belong and you can make your build your brand at the core. And so in terms of websites, I'll say I was lucky when I started my business. I had a little bit of experience building websites. I used to manage the web page for one of my employers at the time. And so I had experience building like using WordPress. So I built my own personal website. I'm not a web designer by trade. I just knew how to sort of manage web pages and all that stuff. So I managed to build something very, how can I say, decently looking website, functional, I guess you could say. Um, but there are a lot more platforms like Squarespace, Wix, which are easy platforms to build a website on, but you're not going to get much. It's not free versions. I would start there, and you can always upgrade. once you own the domain name, which is like your www that photographyx.com, that name goes to you. You can always use platforms. Not a big deal. Let's start with an easy platform like Squarespace, Wix, and you can move on to WordPress if you want to do a little bit more back end work. And then ideally, web pages or websites specifically that are available for photographers are getting better. There is a platform called Focal. Focal actually is a combination almost of a web platform and a CRM. And so on that website, you can actually take your bookings, you have a calendar, your clients can go look at if you're available or not, and you can go and make money without ever actually having a conversation with your client. They can just come on your website, see that you're available, see your pricing, boom, put their credit card down, you book, and then money just shows up in your bank account magically as they see it passive income. There's nothing passive about wedding photography, just so you know. It's actually quite the opposite, if I may be honest. But at least you don't have to squeeze money out of people if you use a website like Focal. It's pretty good for for removing a lot of the pain points for you. And then Google has a platform called My Business Page. Um, you should definitely create a Google My Business Page as quickly as you possibly can. That's where you could be found on their search engine by entering your business name. They can find your Google business page where they can find your contact information. You can have your portfolio there as well, and also testimonials. What do I do every time I'm looking up a restaurant online? I Google it, I find out where it is, then I look up the reviews. And anything below 4 stars, I usually skip over. That's where you build your name. Test online testimonials. Try to keep hopefully a 5-star rating as much as you can. But that's a big difference between securing a booking and client moving on because you have bad ratings. But also, why Google My Business is important is because it's tied to Google Maps. And so showing up on Google Maps also indicates to your potential client that you actually are a legit business within their geographical area. So that's why I suggest you create a Google business page to help you get found online. So that's the second part of your wedding photography business, your cameras, and then your web presence is definitely the second piece of the puzzle. Now, preparing for the big day, this is when stress level is going to start building up for anybody who hasn't done this for a long time. You've got your camera now, you've got your money, now you got to deliver. And as they say, proper preparation prevents poor performance. My friend, after having done so many weddings, I still is nervous on the drive to these weddings because I don't know what to expect. Most of the time, this is a venue that I've never been to, so I don't know what's the ideal location to photograph. Is it going to be raining? Are there going to be too many people? Is the mother-in-law going to be a nightmare? So, like, being prepared is such a big um, component of managing that stress for the big day. And so, being ready for that day um, does not start there. It really starts months, if not years in advance, and it really begins with your client consultation. It's going to take you a few of these calls before you get like comfortable in doing them. But I used to get nervous in talking to my clients. Um, but really doing a client consultation really gives you an opportunity to get to know these people because they're strangers. So you get to know like their personality type and what they expect out of you because some people can be unreasonable and you could quickly, you know, filter clients you want to work with and clients you don't want to work with. And so having a proper consultation with your clients and asking them what they want out of your photographer, as a photographer, out of you specifically, what they want out of you. You're not the only one with expectation. They're gonna have expectations for you. So this is a good time to figure out if you're a good fit. You're not gonna be a good fit for everybody because different cultures have different expectations of photographers. But that's why you have to have a strategic consultation call and having the right questions, asking the right questions. One is, do you want to work at a wedding where you're going to be dealing with 500 people? I sure don't. Hell no. No one. I'm usually burnt out after one day. Um, Usually people who have like weddings of that size will have a multiple day wedding, and my social battery is only so big. So that's why you want to always ask, what's the size of the wedding? What's the theme? What do they expect? Do they like your style? Have they even seen your style? Some people may have just found your name and just called you right up, and they have no idea what your style looks like. And it's a good point to ask, hey, do you like my photos? Because I'm going to be delivering exactly what you saw online. And they say no, I want to send them a few galleries and say, this is what my stuff looks like. That's why it's important to have that conversation and also let them know how many photos you're going to deliver because some people may expect you to send every single image you take. Um, and that's not the case. You want to tell them how many pictures they're going to get, how long is the video, if you do any video coverage, how long that's going to be. Um, One of the things that I had to, when I started offering videography, is my clients starting to ask about drones. Drones are a bit fickle in a way that they're not permitted to fly everywhere. On a drone, you may or may not know that they have a built-in map that prevents them from flying like restricted areas anywhere between anywhere near an airport. There's a no-fly zone, so if that wedding is close to one of your local airports, that drone's not gonna fly. Anywhere near a government building, that drone's not gonna fly. So this is an important part about explaining to clients that this is what I offer, but there's a caveat. I can't do these things in the event of this. And you have this conversation there, right there and then. It will help with, you know, with them not having, unreasonable expectations. Right. One moment, please. I'm just going to. My iPad is turning itself off, so just want to set it properly. Apologies for the delay. Here you go. Well, right back, and you guys are still here. My people, I appreciate it. Thank you. As I was saying, client consultation is really gonna really align the two of you as a photographer and your clients because they'll know exactly what you're gonna deliver. And so once they know what to expect out of each other, an, an item to prepare for the big days, having a key shot questionnaire, which is basically all of the pictures that they want. Some clients value one set of photos, others don't care. So you want to know, hey, what's important to you? Because you're not going to be able to deliver every single photo because there's going to be a lot of like impromptu events that are going to take away from the ability to do your photography. So like what I do in my specific case is I send out a key shots questionnaire. I think have 88 specific poses, um, a grouping of photos, I should say, that I send to my client, and they check off all of the ones that are important to them, and they know that I'm gonna try to get them all, but to know that if something interferes with the timeline or whatever, the weather, that they know that you know a photo's not gonna happen. But it's the reason why I send a questionnaire is because it gives me an opportunity throughout the day, so I don't constantly wonder if I forgot something. It's on my phone. I can just go back. All right, did you do this photo? Did you do this photo? That helps a lot in managing the day-to-day stress. As long as you can nail about 85% of the pictures, you're going to be fine. Your clients are not going to remember everything. And you're likely going to remind them of the events that took place that they completely forgot about because they're so stressed about the day and all these guests are going to come that they're going to forget half of what happens. And there's nothing better feeling that you send out pictures and they come back to you. Oh my God, you got that picture. I forgot about it. It's a great feeling. That's why the key shots questionnaire is super important. Another way to manage stress, my friend, visiting the venue maybe if it's close by. It's not a bad idea to swing by and see, hey, what to look like, what to expect. I like to show up an hour early, at least unpaid, just so I can go and scope the area to see what's the best spot to take pictures in. That way, when the ceremony's over and you gotta like bring 30 people to a specific spot, you already know where to go. Whereas if you're trying to figure out a spot to take pictures, while 30 people are looking at you, 60 pairs, 60 set of eyes looking at you. I don't know about you, but I usually sweat a lot, so they're gonna know right away that I'm nervous, and that's not a good look. So go prepared and go check out these spots, and then just there's you can only be prepared so much, but like at least do those things. And then don't forget the day of the wedding to network with other vendors. Um, this is how you're gonna get referrals. You're not just gonna be referred by your clients, but also other vendors. Um, I love to network with florists. Florists, they need pictures that they can display so that they can secure more bookings. Makeup artists, pretty much every single vendor is going to want you the photos of the event. So make sure that you collect business cards of your your fellow vendors. I got a bag somewhere of just business cards that I've collected over the years. This is just a fraction of them, but I have them all here. And anytime I deliver the final gallery, I also send it to them for them to use for promotional. And I ask them to tag me. That way, whoever's checking out their website, they'll see that I took the picture, and then they'll come to my website to see if they want to book with me. And that's a strategy. So yeah, network with the vendors. If you've never done wedding photography, you know that your biggest enemy is going to be another. Believe it or not, that was a reality check. Unfortunately, I thought that we like the same. Well, I guess most photographers start as a hobby, so we both like taking pictures, and we're gonna make friends, and we're gonna exchange ideas, and we're gonna work together, and that's what I thought would happen. But likely, your biggest enemy in the wedding business is gonna be another photographer. Um, Unfortunately, some people look at the industry as very competitively, but sometimes it's misguided thoughts because you can only do so many weddings a year. You're only one person. The majority of weddings happen on a Saturday, at least in my country, and there's only 52 weeks in a year. So there's 52. You can only do 52 real weddings a year. Um, mhm, but there are thousands, at least in my city, there are thousands of weddings per year. So like you only need such a fraction amount of weddings that you don't need to be so competitive about it. So if I can pass it forward for you guys who might coming in the back, coming in new, like be kind to the ones behind you because they're just trying to figure it out. They don't want to take business from you. You shouldn't be worrying about competing with a new guy who has no idea what he's doing. Help him out. He might help you out. They may refer you to. They can only take on so many weddings themselves. So eventually, once they build a name for themselves and they start becoming unavailable, because a lot of the weddings they're not all spread out throughout the year. We're super busy between um, usually wedding season starts this year is starting a little earlier for me on April, but usually May to I'd say at the end of October is usually so that like 7 months of the year, that's when we're like back to back. So even if you wanted to do every single Saturday through the year, majority of the wedding photographers we make our money in the summer and early spring and late fall. So there's no need to be so competitive about it. So try to befriend those who reach out to you, be polite about it, be polite to them when they ask you for second shooting opportunities and give it to them. They they may bail you out one day if you break your leg on your way to a wedding and then now you need to find someone on a whim. They may save you from getting sued into oblivion. So that's why um, people shouldn't be open competitive um, about the industry because there's enough to go around. Even if people say it's a saturated industry, it's not that saturated. Um, Wedding business is struggling this year because of the COVID lull, that 1 to 2 years where people were locked in home and they couldn't like date and then engage in marriage. So now we're still dealing with the aftermath of that. We benefited a little bit of COVID because all the weddings that were canceled in 2020, 2021 all got like jacked into 2022, 2023. So like if you were starting your business in during that time frame, you would have made bank because there were far and few in between photographer available, so you could have worked very easily. This year is a different story. Hopefully next year is better, but this year there is definitely a bit of a struggle. But this is the joy of entrepreneurship. You're gonna feel the highest of highs. You're gonna feel the lowest of lows, and I wouldn't change it for the world. All right, so I'm gonna move on to point number three. So module number three, composition and posing. Um, this is something you can practice. Um, like I said earlier, don't listen to. I mean, you can listen to whoever you want. I don't want to be that guy who tells you, other everyone's giving you bad advice. I'm just trying to tell you what worked for me, and I wish I knew um, sooner. Was that prime lenses are awesome for the quality of the picture they will give you, but they're very difficult to use early on. It's the wrong lens. Yes, they're cheaper, so you can get a very quality lens for not a lot of money, and you can deliver some pretty awesome pictures. But when you're just learning photography and you're learning to manage clients and you're learning how to use the camera, you don't now need to use a prime lens because it's going to make your posing very difficult. There's nothing like having to go back and forth trying to find the right framing to get everyone in the right in the box. So that's why a zoom lens makes things quicker. You can get through your photo shoot faster when you can zoom in and out and frame correctly, and you don't constantly have to use your feet. So that's why I say like a 2470 is a workhorse for a reason. They may not take the best picture possible, but sometimes your clients are not runway models. They're not going for a photo shoot, and they're not expected to. Their photos are not going on the Vogue. So like photographers need to relax about the quality of picture. They really just do a decent job. Get yourself a 2470. It's perfect for what it does, and learn the rule of thirds first. So framing correctly. Rule of third meaning if you're looking at a box like this camera, it's essentially the lines that go across. So usually a picture frame will, the rule of third, you will see three specific subsections. So you want to make sure that your subject is in at least two of the three boxes. That's what they typically call the rule of third. There's a lot of, I can go more in depth into it, but I don't think this is the right avenue for this topic. But learn the rule of third first, because at least you're going to get proper framing, and then use a zoom lens to make sure that you really get the whole subject in frame. When I started my business, I was using a 23 millimeter 1.4, which is for APS-C cameras. The full frame equivalent would be a 35, and I kept having pictures with like a half an arm cut off, a leg cut off, because it's hard to see when you're looking at you're looking through an EVF. It's a small little frame. You're not going to see those little details initially. Um, and the back of the screen is not that big either. So that's why a zoom lens is so much more versatile and so much more useful for a beginner. So spend the money. And yes, a 2470 is more expensive. Of course it is. But buy used. You can always get a decently priced 2470 lens. Now, candid pictures. Candid pictures. Probably more than half of your pictures are going to be candid. People though, whenever they see a photographer, they tense up at a wedding. So like it's hard to like come close and take a picture, and then they auto right away like they tighten up and they give you this like robotic smile, and it's not very pretty in images. You want to catch people smiling and laughing and having a good time. And how does one do that? By buying a 70 to 200 and sniping them across the room. That's how I get a lot of my candid photos. Um, when people are not they don't realize that you're taking picture of them, and that's how like some of the best pictures I've ever taken was with a telephoto lens, and they're especially useful for the ceremony when you're taking picture of a bride walking down the aisle, and then you see the mom crying over there. You don't want to like walk up to her face and take a picture. She's gonna look at you weird. Ruin the moment anyway. So don't do that. Get yourself a 70 to 200 lens and get those pictures from a distance and deliver them. Your clients will like be like, I can't believe you took this picture. They won't even know that you did it, and it's going to be a pleasant surprise. So that's a tool that you should buy as soon as you can, but don't rush to do it because they're expensive lenses and you only use them so seldomly. So it's kind of like it's nice to have, but it's not like a must have. But if you have the money, that's why you should charge appropriately and not stay too cheap too long. So that you can buy. The quicker you charge, you increase your prices. The quicker you can get quality gear, and the quicker you can charge even more. Right? It's kind of like a give and take. Um, and so, on the subject of composition and posing, years later, I still like get nervous about posing. Believe it or not, because you're already thinking about what's the location. Did I bring all my gear? Who's the bride? What do they look like? Is the couple like have a height discrepancy? Now you have to be opposing gonna be off because one is like a giant, the other one is a small person. You're like, God damn, my posing doesn't work. It's raining. What's the dress? Is there a long veil? Posing is gonna be a problem probably forever because it's not every poses work for every body type. So just learn. I'd say make sure you master 5 to 10 poses that works with the majority of the people, and and just reuse it routinely. Like you don't need to get like all too super creative. It's a wedding. At the end of the day, we're not shooting a movie, so don't stress too much about it. But learn quality poses that you know you do well, that you can guide your clients. Sometimes posing is you have to talk to them in specific ways they know what to do because these people are not models, so they don't have a clue. This is probably the first professional photo shoot, so communicating with them exactly what you want to do, make sure you know what you want to do. So that's why I suggest having a specific set of poses that you can go to right away. Again, I have my phone all day with me, so like in my camera roll, I have a folder that's built specifically for engagement photo shoots and another one that's built specifically for weddings. So I know that while I'm walking from one location to the other, I have like a minute. So while I'm chatting with my clients, I'm looking at, okay, what's the next photo? So we're going to at the top of a hill. There's a wall there. There are poses where I can maybe sit them down. So then I look at my roll and I'll find a couple so that by the time we get there, boom, I know what to do. I'm not thinking. Try to remove as much thinking as you can from your day so that you don't wear yourself out and you don't exhaust yourself out. At the end of the day, you wanna do this for a while. You don't want to burn out. So try to build some kind of routine. Don't stress too much about being repetitive. You're not getting paid to be creative. You're not. Um, this is something I struggled with until I went to a photo conference this year. I went to Photo Summit 2023, which is basically a lot of like um, famous wedding photographers who hosted this event in like Kitchener Waterloo. And if you know YouTubers like Taylor Jackson and John Branch, these guys are like some of the more famous photographers in their industry, and they hosted like I said a summit. So then I had an opportunity to talk to people who've been doing this significantly longer than I have, and I asked them, hey, do your by doing this so long, you probably do the same things. Your portfolio starts to look very similar from one catalog to the other. Is that a problem for your clients? Have they complained that their pictures look like the same as the other couple? And they've all said that doesn't matter. They don't know. As long as the pictures are nice, they like the pictures, and their family likes their pictures, doing the exact same pose with your clients, it's not going to be an issue. So these are not my words. These are a professional who've been doing this a lot longer. So don't be afraid. If you know John Branch, the analogy he gave me was like when you go to Toyota, you go there with a specific set of expectations. You don't want Toyota to be giving you a new car that they just released. everybody goes to Toyota to buy a Toyota Camry or Toyota Corolla, right? So that's what you got to deliver. If they came to you for a Corolla or a Camry, you got to deliver a Corolla or a Camry. Don't be bringing out some Charger, Red Eye, or whatever have you. Don't be experimenting on people's wedding day. If you want to track this different poses, new poses, try it out on when you're not at a at an event like a wedding. So that's why and that eased my fears about my galleries looking the same. So that's the essence of posing. So before we move on to the next few modules, I just want to do a quick plug to my channel. My presets are available. They are available for free, by the way. So I'm not selling them. Um, I'm giving them away for free. So feel free to download them. The link is in the chat. It's pinned at the top. This is the presets that I use to for all my weddings. So what you're gonna get is a bundle of four. So you're gonna get my standard wedding preset that I apply to all my photos from the beginning, and then I have my bright preset, which allows me to adjust. So it adjusts the the exposure. It makes pictures in situations where I'm in a dark environment, specifically like dark churches with very little windows. I can't use my standard preset for that because it makes the pictures too dark. Um, and so that I use my bright preset for situations in low light situations and at night. So these two presets are sort of complementary to each other, and they look very similar, but they do different things for different scenarios. That's why I use these two the at the time. And then I have my black and white. I typically deliver about 10% of my photos in black and white, um, and I use black and white for a couple of reasons. Um, One is the images is just photos isn't good enough to deliver in color, so I screwed up maybe the exposure. It's grainy or it looks bad in color, and I just want to like you know I can turn it black and white. You could typically salvage your photo in black and white, but also like black and white um, photography exists for artistic reasons. I guess you could say black and white pictures look their best when you use them to capture emotion. Someone crying over the shoulder of another person, someone like laughing hysterically. When someone's having an intense moment, turning a black and white picture will essentially remove a lot of distraction out of the photos. People in the background, colorful walls, colorful outfits. It takes all of that away. And when you're looking at a black and white picture, you're typically just seeing someone's raw emotions. And that's usually the reason why black and white is used the majority of the time. Plus, it's also used to make a mediocre picture look decent and call it artistic. That is true. So that's my black and white preset. That's what I use it for. And then my final preset, which is this is when I use, especially for when I want to reflect that it's a specific time of the year. So it's my warm preset. I usually use it for traveling or the summer when I want to show that hey, it's a vacation. It's like I don't know if you do photography like birthday parties or whatever outdoor photos, and you want your pictures to look like really nice and warm and pretty. That's what I use my warm preset for. And all four of them are available for free, so the link up is up there. So feel free to help yourself and enjoy. All right. Any questions so far, friends? Are you guys enjoying the music in the background? I'm playing the lo-fi um, beat off of YouTube. I am I'm trying to create some mood here. I'm not trying to seduce you here, but I figured a little bit of background music might be a bit enjoyable rather than hearing my monotone voice. Um, let me know if the music is trash. I have no issues. I can change it out. Cool, cool. All right. So next piece on the wedding day, um, time management on the wedding day. It's I don't. Everything takes longer than you're really gonna think it's gonna be, and so be prepared to like if you think something's gonna take you 15 minutes, see put 45 minutes down. If you think it's gonna take you like 15 minutes to gather your bags and put them in the specific ceremony room, um, it's gonna take you 45 minutes because you're likely gonna be stopped. People are gonna ask you questions. They're gonna treat you like the planner. So then it's gonna take you forever to gather your gear, come back and forth, get set up, all that. Everything takes 2 to 3 times longer than you really anticipate. So make sure that during the day you're really prepared and put enough time aside, which is why I like to show up an hour early because I typically will use a harness, my two cameras. So putting that on, getting my cameras hooked up, make sure that the proper lenses are set up. I also use a GoPro, so like I like to do behind the scenes, like getting that up, doing drone shot, getting my bags ready, all that stuff takes forever. Question: do you shoot raw or JPEG? Raw, straight raw, and I suggest you do shoot raw as well, and don't shoot compressed raw. I don't trust it. You want to give yourself the most amount of flexibility when you're editing. So always shoot raw. Um, People who shoot JPEGs are trying to save space for what? I don't understand it. You're not saving that much space in your memory card. The memory cards are not that expensive, so like you don't need to shoot JPEG. What if you have the last picture of grandma before she passes away and you shot JPEG and the picture is not good enough and you can't really fix it? How is that going to make your client feel? I know I'm being over dramatic. I'm sorry. That's I may have gone too far on the right there, but there's no need to shoot JPEG, man. Even when I do family photos, I just shoot raw. Like I don't change the setting on my camera. I don't. Cameras are not good enough. I don't use internal LUTs either. I just use the standard profile. There's no need for you to use a LUT for either photo or video. And then you want to use a LUT maybe when you do JPEG that you want to edit. But I like my photos to look the same. I shoot standard at editing post. LUTs are cool if quickly transfer your pictures to Instagram if you want to like finished product, but um, the wireless connections between your phone and the camera absolutely unusable. So like it's pointless. I don't know. I don't find that it's useful to use the internal LUTs. Plus, Fujifilm gives you the standard LUTs for free anyway. You can just download them off their website and then import them into Adobe Lightroom. You can just apply them there, um, and you don't have to use them in your camera because I don't know that you can recover afterwards if you don't like the look of them. I'm gonna show you something, a quick way to apply a LUT um, globally. I learned this a little bit late in the game, unfortunately, so I wish I had known before. I didn't have to apply a preset like every individual photo. I'm loading up my room as we speak. I'm gonna share my screen. Share the screen. I was doing thumbnails earlier, so this is pulling up the catalog. Thumbnail for my YouTube. I'm gonna change this. I need to do this one. Thumbnails, all good. Up for your cat pictures. Here. So this is photo subject. These are pictures they took. So what the trick I wanted to show you is doing a quick develop across the board. So make sure that you can see share the stream. Share. Are you able to see the screen by the way? I'm not sure. I think you can. Hold on. Lightroom catalog. Share. There we go. Should be able to see now. So this is the pictures from I guess this event took place in October. These are the people I was telling you about that are big names in photography right now. So you have Taylor Jackson there. You have John Branch, cool guy by the way. If you ever want to go follow him on YouTube, go do it. So if you want to apply a preset globally, you come here in the library module, and then you come here on the quick develop module, and then you can go and first of all I would go and select all of my photos. So let's say I want to edit, apply the preset to all 525 photos. So they're all highlighted, and then you can just go apply your preset. So let's say I'm going to use my preset the standard, and then it was just going to do I guess I don't know why that failed, but this is where you would go. You would come here where it says save preset. You click on that. You go and pick the preset that you want to apply to, and then it'll do it all one shot. So that's why I never understood why Fuji needed to make um, internal presets for their photos, their cameras. It's not a necessary. Um, I don't know. You like that having internal LUTs? I still haven't found any specific use for them. Maybe you could tell me why that's something you like. We'll circle back to that. So staying unobtrusive while capturing key moments. The the experience for myself, yeah. The experience that your clients, what this, I can't. I'm gonna paraphrase here, but um, people say there's a cliche that goes, "It's not what you've done for people, but how you make them feel is what they're gonna remember." Um, and so being unobtrusive is super important during these like intimate moments. Don't forget these are like lifetime achievements for a lot of people getting married. These are milestones. So like try not to make things about yourself by being prepared, knowing what's happening. You think you can find a way to like move around a wedding, take beautiful picture, but like not be in the way. And so I try always, especially for a couple of key moments, the ceremony, especially when they're doing the vows, not to be too loud with the camera and my movements. Don't be too close to the altar during the ceremony. That's why I say like if you can invest in a 7200 as quickly as possible, spend the money. I think your client's gonna be very pleased about it because you can stand in the back and take pictures of them, really nice frame images of the close-ups while still in being in the back. One of my recent clients left me a really nice testimonial on my Google page saying that their guests remember that I was both at the same time everywhere and nowhere, right? So I really try to stay remember where I'm standing at all times because yes, photography is important, but there's a way these guests are important for these people. The people are want to go and enjoy the day. You don't want to be standing in front of them when there's something important happening. So I will if I have to be at the front of the altar because I don't have a choice, I typically be kneeling down so as to have other people and block the view. And I'll also ask the guests if I'm in their way. And that's very important if you could do that. And also, don't be a noob like me. Took me at least a season or two before I realized that the default setting on the XT3, you have a beeping sound when you and it's doing the focus, so you can hear it click 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 click. When you so like focus on the day, you may not hear it, but I picked it up when I rewatched one of my wedding films, and it recorded in the audio of the groom lavalier mic, and then I realized, damn, probably should remove that noise, which I did now. So that's why I say being unintrusive and really providing a positive experience for your clients is going to be super important for them. And so yeah, um, next piece, communicating with your clients, super important. Let them know what your next move is at all times. You know, before you show up, make sure you give them a call, find out if there's last minute changes, timeline changes all the time. Then make sure you let them know when you're on your way to the wedding, that you're on your way, because they're going to be worried. You're like one of the more important vendors. You're going to be capturing their day, so you want to make sure so always stay in touch with your client. The next piece is editing and post processing. There is personal brand is an important thing. It's not just like your social media and who you are and your logo colors and all that stuff. That's one aspect, but developing a consistent editing style is going to be important because you want your client to know you want to remove any doubt that your look, your any variation in your galleries, your catalog. So you want all your pictures, all your portfolio pictures to look the same as the I'm trying here. Um, will your editing style change year over year? Likely try not to be made too like much changes too soon. So like trying to be, I guess, consistent is going to be important. When you're first learning how to properly edit a complete wedding gallery at the beginning, um, I would suggest working on presets. Um, this is not a plug for the down the free presets I have in the chat, but really it's about um, a gallery has to be really like consistent from like getting ready to the last dance. Like, your photos have to match. Can't have too much variation. Don't experiment with different filters and all that stuff. Like you really gotta, find a look and stick with it as much as you possibly can. What I did at the beginning of my career is I actually bought presets from people whose work I respected a lot until I settled on a specific look. So my first couple of weddings gallery, I don't show them anymore because they're really like different. But like I had bought a preset from a specific photographer that I really respected and I like his work. However, the his preset did not match with my color, my camera color science. So if your photographer that you follow uses a specific brand, like let's say Nikon, and you buy his presets and you try to apply them to a Fujifilm camera, you're not gonna replicate the look that um, he's he has because different camera brands have different color patterns. So for Nikon, a lot of their photos are super warm. They're like for some reason they crank up the warm and the yellow tones in their in their standard images, and whereas Fujifilm has a little bit more cooler tones. Fujifilm is still using some of the color science from like their film days, which is why a lot of the LUTs are in built-in cameras are really replicating actually films from like 30 years ago. Nikon is an amazing camera brand, no doubt about it, for sure, for sure. I've never owned a Nikon, but I've seen the pictures that to this day that their images at today they're fantastic. They're just not they don't match with my editing look. I don't like my images to be too far into the yellows and the warm. So that's why like I may never like go to Nikon. I initially started with Canon, and Canons are beautiful have a beautiful color science. They're really nice in the reds. Um, and so like there's not that much of a difference of look between the Canon and Fujifilm. So I like both of them. Um, I find Sony cameras to be a little bit more in the grays, so the way those images come out, they're a bit different. They say that although all of these camera brands are all Japanese, but they say that Sony, for some reason, color science was originally built to sort of, I don't know if this is a rumor, but I'm going to spread it anyway. Um, but they say that it's Japanese people have a somewhat of a more of a yellow tint and gray skin tone, so that's why the camera color science is optimized for that skin tone. So then they're a little different from the others. I don't own a Sony camera, so I can't say for sure. But I've worked with a photographer, actually, excuse me, a videographer who used a Sony. I think it was an A7 III or whatnot. And when we tried to put, yeah, green tones too. When I tried to put the video footage that he gave me from his camera and put it on the same timeline as the Fujifilm footage, you could tell they were different brand of cameras because they look nothing alike. And yes, sometimes like the camera settings can make a picture look different, but really the color science is built in. Sometimes you that's why you always shoot if you're ever a photographer or videographer, like try to stick to one brand at the bare minimum. You don't have to stick with the same model, but at least stick with the same sensor, and at least your picture will be complementary. Excuse me. So yeah, but I do like Sony. If I'm thinking about maybe in the near future investing into the A7 R5, is it R5? That's the latest camera. It's very nice. Um, I heard, oh, actually, I saw a demonstration of the ISO range, and I think at one point, the person who was doing the demonstration had it up to ISO 60,000, and the picture looked like amazing. If my Fujifilm camera goes up to 12,000 ISO, and it looks horrible if I ever shoot that high. I usually typically stay under 6400 ISO for my cameras. It is. It is a beast. The S3, yeah, for sure. It is one expensive camera though, no doubt about it. Um, as I was saying, now that Adobe released Adobe Denoise, like it kind of leveled the playing field of like APS-C cameras and full frame. At the years ago, like grainy pictures and high ISO was like the main reason why you would go and invest in a full frame camera because the bigger sensor made cleaner pictures, and that was true 2 years ago. But like at this point, you guys are just getting started who haven't settled on a camera brand. If you go with Fuji now, you can save a lot of money at the beginning and invest it elsewhere. Yeah, they are expensive, and the lenses are insanely expensive. I don't know, like how can people even start this business and like not go into debt because a simple 24-7 lens, a G Master lens, I think at the bare minimum is running you like 3 grand. That's insane. That same lens will cost you $1,600 if you go with the Fuji brand. Again, I'm not a Fuji ambassador. I'm just trying to speak from my perspective. Like, remember, I'm trying to give the tip to new photographers, right? And money at the beginning is tight. So, like, spending your money wisely and not blowing it all on one lens and one camera will save you from like stalling because having a more efficient computer will allow you to edit faster, deliver them faster, and therefore making happier clients, and therefore getting referral faster. That's how the game is played. Sigma, yeah, Sigma is pretty good. I use Tamron. I'm a big Tamron fan. For one, the quality of the picture, the technology built in, and the price. Man, the price is ridiculous. I don't know how they're able to like give sell these lenses at that price. One of the craziest lens that I've ever seen is the Tamron. I think it's the 30 to 135. So it starts at f2, I think up to like 60 millimeters, and then it switches to f2.8. So you essentially have a prime lens at f2 from like 30 millimeter to like 50 or 60, and then it's switching to like a telephoto lens at f2.8. And you only have, and so you can essentially basically use one camera, one lens all day, and it's image stabilized, so you can like use it for photo and video. So you have a prime lens and a telephoto lens in one. That's amazing. I don't understand why these camera brands are allowing these third-party lens companies to like eat at their profit margins. by not like also developing lenses like that. So I've never understood why like Sony and Canon don't have those kind of lenses available, and Tamron is like basically taking, eating from under them, basically taking the money. Um, yeah, the I would so Tamron lenses are sick. They're awesome, but one, they're mostly made out of plastic. So like, please be aware that because they're made out of plastic, they're probably less durable. So if you drop them, you'll break that lens and it goes $1,000. Also, um, I noticed a problem with the Tamron lens. At least I don't know if I have like a defective uh, copy, but mine sometimes doesn't doesn't connect perfectly to the camera itself. So you will see some vignetting on the edges, so like a little black spots in the corners. So like I've noticed that twice. It was alarming the first time I saw it, but they realized because they're two different brands, maybe the tolerances are not as tight. So like that's why sometimes you see that vignetting because the seal is not perfectly matched to the body lens. It's not the same company, right? So like that's a downside. But for the upside, it's just insane. That's why I love it. So I'll continue to use it. And yeah, do you use photo mechanic? Have you ever heard of photo mechanic? Lightroom is the main software we use to um, edit photos, and so it's a really good and powerful tool. However, it is super slow. So I use photo mechanic for my editing. That's how I call my images, and it's a very fast way to like go through like thousands of pictures. On any given day, I might shoot 4 to 5 thousand photos. So like calling through Adobe and dealing with the lag is like unbearable. So Photo Mechanic is definitely a tool that I use to call my photos. For $120 you can get it, and it's yours. There's no membership required, and it saves me a lot of time. Um, it used to take me like 2 to 3 evenings to go through an entire wedding gallery. I can do that in like 2 to 3 hours now, and I wish I had used it and learned and bought it sooner because I think I would have saved myself a lot of time and stress. I guess you could say frustration because there's nothing fun about trying to do a specific job and then being limited by the speed of a tool. It's frustrating, and so that's why photo mechanic is definitely something you want to invest. $100 is not that much money in the grand scheme of things, so it's a good place to spend it. Other item, delivering the final product. I like to deliver it within 2 to 3, not the final product, but rather a preview of the final product, 2 to 3 days, and then uh, and then delivering the final gallery within 4 to 6 weeks. That's my standard timeline, and I could get that done um, within 4 weeks usually. While there's the excitement is still there, I like to deliver it. So, friend, I think it's just you and I don't want to bore you with the same spiel from like last week. So, we're gonna switch it up a little bit because I want to be kind to you and your time, and I want to teach. I want to just give you a little bit of things that I learned and mistakes that I made when I was um, starting my photography business. I'm gonna tell you some of the horror story that I dealt with. By the way, I've never asked you before, but how many weddings have you done so far? Uh, Maybe give me a number so I have a bit of context. One, two. None? Like five? So, zero. Okay. Well, let me tell you some of the ridiculousness that you're gonna deal with in this business. Um, most couples are cool, most clients are chill. You're gonna run every now and then into like a nightmare client, a clinger, I like to call them. We're gonna just like because they paid you, they think they own you now. So like they're gonna try to get squeeze every dollar out of you, and uh, and so I spoke about a contract earlier. Like I would say, you should never take a single wedding without having one in place. Um, it's a big deterrent for potential client who might try to abuse you. Some people are just miserable, so they like to make everybody else miserable. But you don't know until you meet the real person, right? And so clients can be super chill and nice up until you deliver what you agreed upon on a contractual basis, and then you do a 180, and then the fun starts. And when I say the fun, I mean the bullshit starts. So um, a contract is super important, even if it might not hold in a court of law, but having that on paper that they agree to might give you a little bit of insane expectation. And so I'm just gonna give you, maybe I have given you the story last week, but apologies if I repeat it. But one of my more recent clients, at least from my last wedding, um, I had agreed that I was gonna. First of all, I usually book my weddings 6 months to a year in advance. This person showed up a week before. This is the kind of client we're talking about, booking a photographer for a day, a wedding a week away. That's how disorganized, and that should have been the red flag that I should have picked up on, but I guess I couldn't say no to 3 grand, right? So I don't think I was coming from an area of greed, but it was good money, so I was like, I'll do the contract and I'll deliver what I deliver most of my clients. So my standard package, which is about $3,000, and I'm gonna deliver 700 images in about a 5 minute film. And what I end up delivering is 900, close to 1,000 photos, so 300 more images and a 13-minute film. And she wasn't happy with it. So, right, is this a story I told you? Hopefully not, but I'll make it quick anyway, so I don't bore you to death. But you know, I delivered more than she paid for, and I thought that would be the end of it all. But somehow, some way, her family interfered and mentioned that they expected something different, and maybe they contributed financially to it. And so they essentially um, asked me to redo the film and do something a little longer. Mind you, I typically work alone, and I'm doing photography, so I only have so much raw video footage that I'm working with, so I can only extend a film so long. Now, after 4 to 5 hours of revisions and probably a week of work, I sent back a 29-minute film eventually. And even though it was not exactly what they wanted, it was longer and there was a bit more content. So at least they were happy. I was closer to what they were expecting, which is a 45-minute film. And with most wedding films are never that long anyway, but at least that's what that culture expected. So I got close enough, and then I billed them for it. Mistake that I made here was I didn't quote her the exact amount of additional hours and how much I was going to charge her for her additionally, and the client wasn't happy about it, but she finally settled the bill after going back and forth, um, and that was that. So I spent a lot of time giving her, spent a lot of time communicating back and forth, and it was all, we were all happy with it until unfortunately the story changed, and at that point I was getting a bit more grief from the client, even though we had contractual contracts and clauses in place. So when I tell you like a contract is super important, because they may be friendly up until they feel like um, you infringe on them, and then they turn. And I don't know that that client wouldn't take me to small claims court if we didn't have a signed contract in place. So I got my money. She paid me, and that was the end, and that was the last conversation we had. But I feel like, if there is one advice that I can impart on my clients is don't underestimate the importance of a contract in place when you're doing these freelance work for these individuals. You can quickly ruin your business, if I may say. Another thing that happened, this one was weird. I don't know what was going on this year, but um, other vendors, like other photographers, be coming um, on site, basically doing the same thing. So like my couple hired me to come photograph their wedding, and then I show up the day of, and then there's another photographer. So now there's two of us trying to, and mind you, for this particular wedding, I had an assistant. So there's two of us show up, and there's two of them. So now we're four people trying to photograph a relatively small wedding, and it was the most nonsensical thing that I've ever dealt with because I'm trying to take picture in a doorway, and the guy is standing next to me trying to do the same thing. So now we're both fighting for position, and we're bumping into each other, and we're ruining each other's shot. And we're trying to guide the client in posing, and he's also trying to do the same thing. And it was just a nightmare. So like, make sure that when you are going to be, taking on these projects, to ensure that your client know that you should be the only vendor in place, because you don't want your photo shoot ruined by another vendor trying to do the same thing. Now your client is unhappy because they hire somebody else, or their family hires somebody else, and they kind of got in the way. Um, it happened, I would say, at least a minimum of twice. So this one was annoying. We tried to work together, but we were still like getting in each other's way. The, the other one, another wedding, we, everything is going well. I show up. We're in the getting ready room. I take a picture of the bride, the bridesmaid. I go to the groomsmen. I take their pictures. I take a picture of the venue. I show up at the ceremony, and then while the bridal party is walking down the aisle, this other cameraman out of nowhere shows up with his gimbal and his camera, and this dude is like walking down the aisle directly in front of the bride. So like I'm at the front of the altar with the groom, the bride is walking up, and he's in the middle of the aisle recording her, and now he's basically ruining my shot of the most critical part of the day, which is the bride walking down the aisle. This is where everybody is standing. This is the big moment. She's making her grand entrance, and there is a dude with his gimbal walking in front of her the whole time. I have never, I almost had an aneurysm when that happened because he could not have been in the worst possible spot at the most critical point of the day. Luckily, I had a conversation with him right after that particular moment during the ceremony when the pastor is doing his thing and they're doing their vows, and I had a little bit of a quiet moment. He's sitting there, and I asked him why he was there, and he told me he was part of the church group that the groom belongs to, so he was there as a volunteer. And I kind of explained to him, listen, like I'm hired to be here, and you're not. He was just volunteering, and I explained to him that I didn't know what I had at the time in my camera. So luckily I had decent footage, but he showed up in a lot of my pictures. But like I told him, like he almost ruined my photo shoot just for that specific moment. So I told him, like, for the rest of the day, like I'm the primary shooter. Like you follow my order, or else I'm gonna, I was polite about it, but I was gonna complain. And then Groom was gonna be like, he's got to go because he's always in the wrong spot and ruining my shoot. So make sure that you communicate that need to your client, even if it's in your contract. Sometimes they're not going to read the fine print, so it's important to sit down with your couple and be like, "Hey, I need to be the primary photographer there, or I can't guarantee the quality of your photos." So that's story number two: silliness of other vendors showing up when you're not being told about it and they're not needed. The another situation was, um, so this this issue could be mitigated with just being a little bit more prepared and investing a little bit more money into your gear. And this is a situation where I was doing too much, and I was juggling too many cameras at the time. I was working with two cameras and a GoPro, and what I would do typically in my at the beginning, when before I invested in a third camera body, was I was taking picture of the bride with my telephoto lens, so while she's far away, I can like catch taking picture of her, and as she walked closer, I would switch to my second camera and like take video. That's how I was doing my hybrid coverage at the beginning, and it was stressful because I had to like switch back and forth, and I was like, I screwed up essentially. I kind of like missed the bride walking down the aisle. I got the pictures of it, but I didn't get the video. And even though a lot of people hire me for photography, the majority of people watch the video over and over again, uh, almost like the video is the main event, but the photography is like all of the side dishes. It's a complimentary. So like that's why I encourage anyone who's trying to get into the photography business to learn video, because it is it's inevitably going in their direction. Like as we progress more and more people want video footage of their wedding, but they're so used to hiring photographers that it's hard for them to like not hire a photographer. But like I wouldn't be surprised like 10 to 20 years down the road people hire for videographers primarily. So like try to stay ahead of the curve if you may. I think you'll be better off. So yeah, so I kind of like missed the brides walking down the aisle in my video footage, and so that's why now I have a monopod with a third camera body sitting idling down the aisle, capturing the bride walking down, and I don't have to worry about trying to juggle too many cameras. And next, the last piece that I want to share with you is um, Adobe Lightroom has come so far that you shouldn't worry about shooting high ISO 4K weddings always. I like 4K. Um, I think 4K looks great. 1080p is fine if you're watching the video on a phone or a tablet. But guess what? Um, now everyone owns a smart TV, and they're going to project the wedding on a television on a 65-inch screen. Nonetheless, some people have 80-inch screens. 1080p is not going to cut it, at least not anymore. So that's why I suggest to shoot in 4K as much as you possibly can. It eats a lot more memory, but it looks a lot nicer on television. So suggest you shoot in 4K if you can, and just invest in like higher storage space memory cards. And so, as I was saying, don't be afraid to run high ISO today. Depending on the camera brand you have, I think you mentioned you have a Nikon and then also a Lumix, but you may also have a Fujifilm. I don't remember all the details of your gear, but APS-C sensors are smaller sensors and sometimes can have grainy pictures. 6K, 6K. No, I don't use 6K. I don't know that my cameras even are capable to use 6K, and I don't know that it's even necessary. Remember, you're shooting weddings for the average person, so like only very few people have like monitors and screens with that high of resolution that you want to shoot 6K or even 8K now that's out. Um, so just keep it 4K. I think 4K is pretty good. A lot of people are still catching up to 4K as we speak, so 6K is overkill, I would say. But as I was saying, high ISO. Don't be afraid to go as high as you need to. I'm not worried about going to 12,000 ISO. If I have to, I can just use Adobe Denoise and clean my images and look nearly perfect. So um, don't be afraid to use high ISO, because AI here and it's here to stay, and you can clean up your images a lot easier than we ever could just 2 years ago. All right. So now just want to you know quickly wrap up the end of this live stream. So again, um, I want to thank you for for being here and being part of my audience, and again sticking around for another hour and a half of beginner wedding photographer tips. I hope it added value for this session. Um, I believe there might a few other things that I've added so that you get a little bit of value out of this live stream and your time. So my other suggestion now would be for you to maybe not just read like watch videos online, but like pick up a couple of books. There's some really like valuable resources out there that give you a little bit more context and a little bit more value than a lot of like YouTube videos online. I find that because they're limited to such tight um, time frames, they can only squeeze in so much in a 15-minute video. A book is a lot more detailed and less subjected to the algorithm and less to the need to be entertaining. This is really better. This is just to teach you how to do your craft. And if I may recommend Taylor Jackson's book, After 1,000 Weddings, um, really a book that speaks specifically about this niche. It really gives you all of the fundamentals that you need to master in order to run a successful business. And so he's done 1,000 weddings, I assume, since that's the title of his book. And he really teaches you proper client service, how to book more weddings, um, and how to get ahead of your competition. Um, like to say it's a saturated industry, and I don't necessarily think that's true, but it is competitive. So um, you're gonna have to have a really like big competitive edge for clients to come to you consistently over your competition. A lot of these cameras are so advanced, and now with the advent of presets, it doesn't take much time and effort to really catch up to get people who've been doing this for 10, 15 years. So that's why you got the quality of your pictures is not going to set you apart sufficiently enough. So in his book, he speaks about like competitive edges you can have. And I'm actually using a lot of the strategies as part of my overall business and my branding. And I think thanks to him, I was able to go from zero wedding to like 26 in 1 year without really having any experience. And people think I've been doing this a lot longer than I have, and that's in part because of the readings and the information that I've learned thanks to that specific individual. So Taylor Jackson, After 1,000 Weddings, is definitely the first book you should start reading. Gary Vee's book Jab Jab Right Hook is actually very good as well. Not so much for photography, but rather business strategies. It teaches you the fundamentals of being competitive, essentially what it takes to dominate in your field, and how to like have a proper sales funnel and really like bringing as much money as you possibly can. And he speaks about social media and how to dominate there, how to network, how to position your content, and essentially get out of your comfort zone and go like after your dreams. And he gives you like essentially a path to that. So I find that Jab Jab Right Hook was pretty um, influential as part of my business strategy. And then the last one is Roberto Blake. It's called Create Something Awesome. I discovered that specific, I guess, author recently. His book is more positioned about social media strategy and content development. Um, he's actually the main influence as to why I'm doing a live today. Um, he's been Um, he kind of started also as a photographer for some reason, but migrated more so to social media marketing. But the reason why I'm recommending his book is because he teaches you the fundamentals of online content development, what it takes to be able to build an audience, what it takes to use your social media platforms, uh, you know, improve your freelance business. So that's why I think these three books complement each other. They teach you a different element of business, and they all incorporate an element of social media marketing. And so, if, like I said, developing nice photos and putting them online is not going to be sufficient. You have to compete on a different spectrum, and a lot of photographers struggle in the SEO game, the social media game, the content development game, and that's where you're gonna like build a lead on them to be able to consistently bring in new clients. So those are the three books that I highly recommend as part of your readings going forward. And so if I can recap what information that I shared today. Number one, practice your exposure triangle. Clearly, you have professional grade cameras. The Nikon Z6 is a fantastic. The S5 is amazing as well. So learn to practice how to use them. Please be aware that you don't need to shoot manual when you first get started. You probably don't even have to shoot manual for at least a year or two. But you do need to learn the proper exposure, um, the exposure triangle, and also like make sure that you understand how to use your shutter speed more than the other um, pieces of the you know camera settings. I say learn, analyze your event properly, and know that when you shouldn't be using a specific setting, the same setting you would use for people sitting down and others dancing. You really gotta like exposure is one aspect, but making sure that you have images in focus and understanding your scene is going to help you set your camera setting properly. That's why practicing different scenarios is going to help you really improve that particular area. And then, like I said, making nice pictures is one thing, but it's not going to be good enough. So start building that online authority. Build as much as you can, as soon as you can. So that way you have a body of work. So quality is good, but quantity of quality is even better. The last thing I would suggest you do is like continue to refine your business. So like your website, start with what you have, what you can build at the moment, and then improve on that. So if you get a cheapy website where you have just your information, your portfolio, that's good enough early on in the process, at least on the domain name, and you can always migrate to a more, state-of-the-art website, more something more prettier and more advanced. And then also build SEO, search engine optimization. One of the things that you could do for yourself early on is blog. Um, it's an element that I need to get better at, but blogging will help you rank in Google. So like try to build your website and then start blogging. That way you can build some online authority and some search ranking. You want to start ranking on Google. So that's the other element that that you should do to refine your business, and continue to like practice your editing. Adobe Lightroom is a very powerful tool. Majority of us only use a fraction of the capabilities. So like developing that skill is going to really improve the quality of your image in the long run. So we'll continue to refine that. And my friend, we are now at the end of the live stream. If you haven't downloaded the preset yet, it's there. So feel free to click on the link, get those. Um, I'll suggest now because I don't know that I'm going to leave them there for free for a long time. Um, but they're available now, so like get them. You can use them in infinity afterwards, right? So I'm gonna leave it there. I want to thank you again for attending my live stream and sitting and listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned a thing or two that you can implement to your business. I appreciate your time. I will be doing this on a weekly basis. So I'm thinking like every Tuesday is likely going to be my live stream day. Um, and I'm going to try to bring a new topic each week. I'm going to try to keep them at a reasonable duration. I think an hour and a half, I think is a sweet spot. And I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and you come to the next live. And then I'm more than happy to impart the knowledge that I have and make you successful. So thank you once again for attending, and I hope you have yourself a good night.